Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this parallel session dedicated to skills, one of the cross-cutting issues that we are covering within the JU program as part of the research activities, but as well with several additional activities that we are supporting, like the observatory. Welcome, everybody. My name is Alberto Garcia. I will be the project officer moderating the session for the next 1 hour and a half. And today we have a very interesting session in which we are going to review not only JU projects, which is the usual practice normally, but also projects funded within other EU, let's say, funding programs, as well as new opportunities of funding available for the hydrogen and fuel cell sector. So, as I said, welcome everybody. We have four fantastic presentations, and I would like to start by introducing the first speaker, Katarina Muse. Katarina, thank you for being here today and finding the time and joining us. And Katarina Muse is manager of the regional pillar and skills manager at Hydrogen Europe, and she is also part of the coordination team. Correct me if I'm mistaken, Katarina, coordination team within the Erasmus Plus Green Skills for Hydrogen project. So, Katarina, thank you for joining in these Hydrogen Research Days, and off you go. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto, and thank you for this introduction. You're absolutely right. Hydrogen Europe and myself are one of the coordinators of the project that I will be presenting here today. If you allow me, I will share my screen so we can go straight to the project. Before I get the slides online, as always, technical issues have to be a part of any online event. I think it became part of the tradition. But
all is good, Katerina, if I may. We can see the slide very well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alberto. As I was saying, Hydrogen Europe is one of the coordinators of the project that I will be presenting here today. But allow me maybe just a couple of words about Hydrogen Europe as a form of introduction. My hope is that many of you here today are well aware of our organization, but it never hurts to repeat. We are based in Brussels. We are a trade association that gathers industry members, but it gathers also regions, national associations, cluster, so quite a diverse membership. And our mission really is to support our industry and to support our industry in achieving, of course, the EU's climate and energy goals, the main one being becoming the first climate neutral continent by 2050. It is a quite demanding task that I'm hoping we are contributing to fulfilling these goals. And as part of our work, as part of this mission, I believe you will all agree with me that having a skilled, upskilled, and trained workers will really be crucial for us to be able to have our projects turn into a reality and bringing the benefits to both the sector, but to the European economy in general. I know you see our president, Ursula von der Leyen, here on the slide. And the reason she is on this slide, she is in no way, shape, or form actively involved in the project. I wanted to share this quote from her that I find quite telling, and I think it provides a very good introduction also in our session here today. During her State of the Union speech, President von der Leyen really stressed that we are in a situation where instead of having millions of people looking for jobs, we have millions of jobs looking for people. I do think this will be a leitmotif also in our session here today. And I think all the projects that will be presented here today are bits of the bigger puzzle and how to make sure we have people, skilled people who are able to take on of these jobs, new jobs that are being created within our sector. Speaking of jobs created within the hydrogen sector, Here I wanted to share with you some estimates that have been done internally within Hydrogen Europe as to the number of jobs that will be created by our sector by 2030. We, of course, took some assumptions in generating this number, which I'm more than happy to share with you later on. And you see some of these assumptions on the screen as well. But we are projecting that we will have around 249,000 jobs in Europe by 2030, just looking at if we manage to achieve the manufacturing targets you see on the screen. If we're looking at the whole value chain of hydrogen, we're talking around 1 million jobs that will be created by 2030. So as I said, quite an immense task ahead of all of us in years to come. After this brief introduction, we dive into the project that I'm presenting here today. It's called the Green Skills for Hydrogen project. As Alberto mentioned in the introduction, we are looking beyond just projects that are supported within the partnership, but we are looking into other projects that the European Union is supporting. This is one of them. The project is supported by Erasmus+. It's a blueprint project for those of you who are familiar with these types of projects. So put it quite simply, the idea is to create a blueprint of trainings that will then be rolled out and disseminated across Europe. The project has started last year in July 2022 was our kickoff. So we are now in 1.5 years of a 4-year duration of the project. And in the next couple of minutes, I will tell you a bit more about the main deliverables and where we are in the process. But as you can see on the screen, the project itself is quite European, if I may say so. We cover around 15 countries, more than 30 plus partners. The partners as well are quite diverse because the idea was really to involve as many diverse stakeholders into this project as possible. So we have representatives from the industry, from higher education, research organizations, vocational educational training providers, our regions, national European networks, clusters. So really bringing in a number of different perspectives into the project. I have included here as well for you the link to the project website. And of course, here we will just scratch the surface of some of the activities we are doing, but I would encourage you to also have a look at our website and to engage and reach out directly to our project partners. So we do have quite a bit of task in this 4 years duration of the project. When it comes to some of the main deliverables, as you can imagine, there's a number of other smaller activities that project will be focusing on. Our main deliverables are the hydrogen skill strategy. I will dedicate some time to the skill strategy because we launched it this summer and it's a good base for other activities within the project. But the project will also design a VAT curriculum that will be tested and based on the pilot trainings refined. All of the trainings as well as a VAT curriculum will be available publicly on our website, and we are always inviting others to reach out to us so they can use and will be able to test these trainings as well. And finally, this should result in building a proper hydrogen skill community that will be able to then roll out and disseminate these projects in almost all EU member states. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide. This is just to give you an idea when can you expect different deliverables coming out from the project. As I mentioned, the skill strategy has been published, and I'll tell you something about it in just a couple of minutes. Also available in more detail in our website. We are at the stage where we are building the core curriculum, and then the curriculum and training materials will be tested via pilot training starting from 2024. And in the meantime, for those of you who are interested, we also conducted urgent trainings in Greece, in Northern Netherlands, in Western Macedonia. These trainings are already available on our website. in case you would like to replicate them in your respective communities. And as I mentioned, we are building a community. So on our website, you are more than welcome to join the forums and exchange with our project partners, but as well as other stakeholders that are closely monitoring this project. Hydrogen skill strategy that you see here on the screen. The first part of this deliverable was looking into skills and training mapping. So what we did, we conducted around 146 interviews asking our stakeholders as to their perception of the jobs that are in demand now, jobs that will be in demand in the future, as well as what are the skills and knowledge that we need to train our workers in. And based on the interview campaign, we have then outlined several recommendations for collective action that will also be presented here today. The coverage of the interview campaign, so we reached around 23 European countries, and we do think this is quite a good start to then help us in delivering on more specific training needs. As promised, I will give you some snippets of the hydrogen skills strategy, but please do note that a very detailed analysis of everything that will be presented on the slide is available as part of the document. But this is just to give you some idea as to the outcome of the skills and job mapping that we did as part of this exercise. What you see on the slide is what, based on our stakeholders, are jobs that are in demand in our sector now. They are grouped based on the level of specific knowledge on hydrogen that is required for these positions, starting from low, medium to high. Those professions that are in bold are those that are seen as urgently needed. Basically, those jobs are needed yesterday by our stakeholders. As you can see, most of the profiles are in the technical engineering side of things, but we should not also neglect some of the shortages that our public institutions are also experiencing, because public institutions are those that were issuing licenses, issuing permits, for example. So these are also some areas where we need to strengthen their capacities as well. Of course, this is a situation now. In the document, we also asked into some future insights into future jobs that are in demand. And to a certain extent, the profile stayed the same, but there are some shifts. For example, with hydrogen being used in different sectors, we are seeing, of course, more demand on the end use, of course, coming up in the future. Now, we talked about the jobs that are in demand. When it comes to what are the skills and knowledge that our workers need to be trained on, according to our stakeholders, at the moment, there is a huge need to train our workers around production, around hazards and safety. Of course, linked with production is the electrolyzers knowledge as well. The bigger the word on the slide, the bigger need is for this specific skill and knowledge. And based on this analysis and based on the job analysis, we're also looking into some recommendations, and these results will feed into the trainings that our partners will develop. Speaking of trainings, what we also wanted to learn is what is the situation at the moment when it comes to where do the workers get the trainings needed. And as you can see, hopefully on the slide, at the moment, the workers are being trained on the job, either by having practical trainings with external providers. So the companies do rely on this a lot. What we are also seeing, and may not be as clear from the graph, is the increase in master's and bachelor programs that are specifically focusing on hydrogen. So throughout all of this presentation, we're really talking about very specific hydrogen knowledge. What we also identified that is something that I wanted to share with you today is what are some of the challenges when it comes to developing hydrogen training and education. I think we all agree, and as we've seen based on the results of the survey, there is skills needs, there is an urgent need to train these people. So what are some of the challenges we are facing in implementing this education and training and skilling programs in our companies? So we asked our stakeholders about this as well. The major issue is the shortage of qualified teachers and trainers. I'm sure many of you that are here today are stretched in different programs and different projects you're participating. So there is really a big need to train the trainers as well. Lack of infrastructure has emerged as a peculiar challenge, because if we do want to have hands-on trainings, we do need special infrastructure, we do need equipment, and this equipment can also be very pricey. There is an absence of established training standards. We put safety here, but not only on safety, overall on hydrogen training, and it's a big topic for this project, and I'm sure for other projects presented here today. There's always, of course, lack of funding that's dedicated to this, lack of time for workers to dedicate to specific hydrogen trainings. So this presents quite some obstacles, especially when we're talking about on-the-job training. Our stakeholders also identified lack of flexibility in educational pathways as an obstacle for them to roll out specific hydrogen trainings and education. And as I said, there is also quite real fear of limited financial viability of the training and education programs established specifically on hydrogen. As a result of all the research and the survey we did, we have put forward areas for collective action. They are outlined in more details in our document, and I would encourage all of you who are interested to reach out to me, to reach out to the project so we can engage. And I'm pretty sure many of you are already working hands-on on these issues, so if there's something we can learn and share across board, that will be always quite helpful. But the 6 areas for collective action, as we defined it, are to develop module trainings. That way it would be more flexible for our workers and students to take on some of these skills and knowledge. To establish an online hydrogen community. We see today how many projects are dedicated to hydrogen trainings, and it's always good to share best practices. The training standards was already mentioned as a very big issue that we need to work on, and that will hopefully lead to more mobility for all of our workers, but mobility also for education on hydrogen, improving access to continuing professional development, trying to address some of the challenges that I previously mentioned. And last but not least, we need to all work together to promote our sector as a sector where people can have very sustainable, highly paid job, good careers also for the future, and open it up across different countries and across, of course, trying to involve as well as some gender diversity into our sector. This is my last slide that focuses on what are some of the next steps for the project. As mentioned, the strategy now is there. We have our framework, we have what we need to do, our objectives. And in the meantime, we are implementing already some urgent trainings, and the pilot trainings based on the curriculum that we will develop will start in 2024. If you're interested already in the urgent trainings, I will once again encourage you to have a look at our website, where you can also find some training materials. Any feedback we get will, of course, feed into the revision of the training materials we're working on, so it's quite welcomed. And that will help us then to disseminate the content and to encourage adoption of the training programs across Europe. My final message, and I don't have it on the slide, but as you hopefully know, next week we have Hydrogen Week here in Brussels, and the project will also have a booth there as part of the EU Project Pavilion, where we will also do a presentation on Thursday. So if you are in town, if you're visiting the European Hydrogen Week, do not hesitate to come and stop by our booth, where you will be able to find even more information about the project. I do hope I didn't took too much of the time, Alberto. I was following you. You didn't give me any signs to cut it, so I hope that's okay. I will be here, of course, until the end of the session, so looking forward to any questions that might come from the audience on the project and other topics. Thank you so much for
Thanks
your
a lot, Katarina. Indeed, you kept the time very well. And yes, my colleagues are telling me that we are receiving a few questions on Slido, so we will go through them at the end of the discussion. Thanks a lot for being with us today and for the invitation to the booth at the Hadrian Skills Hadrian Week. Sorry, and very interesting project. I have to say, very nice overview, and thanks a lot for sharing with us. Let's say the actions or the list of actions that you have identified based on the works and the strategy that you have published. Thanks a lot. We will collectively work around those topics, I'm pretty sure, and we'll find a way to set a path to move forward. Thanks a lot. And without further ado, let's continue with the next speaker and the next presentation. And I have the pleasure to introduce Mrs. Sile Brennan. Sile Brennan, she is the Reader Course Director on Safety Engineering and Disaster Management at the University of Ulster. And she is also the coordinator of one of the projects that we have been supported within the JU program, the HYResponder project. So Sile, thanks a lot for being with us. Nice seeing you again. And please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alberto, for the introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here today about the HYResponder project. Hopefully you can see my slides. So HYResponder, it started back in January 2020, and we had grand plans for lots of face-to-face training, lots of activities, in-person events, and then the pandemic came. And we had to review the plans as the project progressed and work within those constraints. So the project is a Train the Trainer program for first responders in hydrogen safety, and it brought together 16 partners from 10 countries, incorporating both industry, academia, fire and rescue services, and also an overarching international organization for fire and rescue services. So this is just illustrative of the number of countries represented within the program. So what did we want to achieve within HYResponder? And hopefully I can demonstrate how we have achieved these or worked towards these objectives over the course of the project. So HYResponder, it was building on a previous very successful project, HYResponse, which was coordinated by colleagues in France, NSOSP. And a threefold approach to training was developed. That project completed in 2016. So operational or hands-on training, virtual reality training, and educational training and lectures. And what we wanted to achieve within HYResponder was really to maximize the impact of that package, but also to update it, to build upon it, to translate it and to utilize it, and ensure that a sustainable approach to training was put in place. So our goal was to develop updated training, establish a wider network of trainers who would take this forward and make sure that we were going to train trainers from across Europe in at least 10 countries, make the teaching materials available in 8 languages, and I'll come back to that, and then support those trainers in delivering training in 10 countries, but also beyond that, putting a plan in place beyond the project as to how that training could be put forward or brought forward. So that brings me to the next objective, so ensuring sustainability of the training program. So what happens when HYResponder ends, which it now has? Within HYResponder, we've also updated the European Emergency Response Guide for responders responding to incidents in hydrogen safety. And we have focused on establishing a forum. The intention was that this was online, but I'll come back to that as well. So if we talk about the training package, so this is what we want to develop for trainers to utilize with their trainees. It's a threefold approach. So it's operational or hands-on training. And there is a unique facility that has been built in NSOSP in France. And that was built initially within the HYResponder or HYResponse project, apologies. And within HYResponder, that's been extended to enable demonstration of cryogenic spills. So while that training facility is there, that unique facility as an output. A further output has been our colleagues at NSOSP have been instrumental in working with other partners who have secured funding from outside this project and want to look at their own small-scale facilities. And there's an interest in that going forward amongst a range of countries as to how they can build on this, how they can learn from the best practice and the experience at NSOSP. We've educational training. There was a body of content developed prior to this project. So within the scope of HYResponder, we have revised those lectures, updated them, included factors such as liquid hydrogen, and we've also stratified them. And I'll come back to what I mean by that in terms of splitting them into different learning levels. We've trialed them and we've translated them into 8 different languages. There's VR training as well, which has been extended with new scenarios to reflect advancements in the field more recently. And all of this training package is underpinned by the revised European Emergency Response Guide. So I mentioned this stratification of lectures. This was a task we undertook in the first period of the project. Very quickly, it became clear that we had a huge body of information, which the consensus among those responders in the project was really that that was useful at a higher level for specialist level. But for firefighters, for that entry level, there was a need to strip back and identify the most pertinent information. So what we did was worked with the responders to split the materials into 3 different learning levels, from firefighter up to specialist. And those 4 categories were based on trying to find a consensus amongst firefighters from different countries. That was a real learning curve for all of us within this project. The diversity in approach, the different structures of fire services across Europe in different regions and in different countries. So level 1 is what we have used, or the firefighter level is what we took as our base level to develop a standardized training framework to support recognition of the training. And I'll revisit that in a minute as well. We've also revised the European Emergency Response Guide, and that is a guide intended to be used by emergency response personnel. That is available online, and we opened contributions for updates and requests to updates for wider consultation, not just the responders within the project, but more widely as well. And that we would envisage that potentially as being a living document with NSOSP leading that. And we've had lots of discussions about how we can take that forward. There's a lot of elements within the project where there's a real interest amongst the response community in building on them and keeping them there going forward as well. So it was ultimately a train the trainer program. So there's 3 elements within that. And I would say that 2 of those fell within the initial scope of HYResponder. And the 3rd element is something that is ongoing and will continue to be ongoing. So step 1 was to train national leads. So we wanted to identify those key personnel in the partner countries. And we had a grand plan for a wonderful face-to-face training. This was in the project design, where we would do everything in one go, from educational to hands-on training, virtual reality training, and we had to review that and split it due to the pandemic. So we ended up training trainers from different countries over a series of events, both through virtual training, online training in June 21, and finally operational and VR training in June 2022. And the idea would be, was that those training leads from those different countries went back and were leads within their representative regions. And so that was in the second part of the project. We had training delivered within 10 countries through a range of formats. We initially at the project outset thought we would have one size fits all. We would roll out a training module that would be used widely. And what we kept hearing was that responders wanted to be able to take the elements that worked with their localized arrangements, and that would be the most effective way to bring it forward. So that's what we did. The training was developed and delivered in a way that was best suited to each particular region, using the translated materials that are available. And where we then went with it is, and that's why I say beyond HYResponder, there's a plan in place as to what happens next. So in each country, where does the information go? What happens now beyond HYResponder? How do we ensure that hydrogen safety is a constituent element of training for responders in the different regions? So I mentioned the national training has taken different formats. So all I have here is 3 examples, but there are more available as well. So Austria were the first country to initiate national training. They went with an online approach. And that module, they have 2 modules now, both in basic knowledge and also specialist. And up to now, there's been over 200 responders enrolled in the basic course alone. And I think it's 80 on the specialist. But the plan is to have over 800 participants by the end of 2020 or 2023 and to build on that further. So that's the direction of travel in Austria. Norway was a hybrid approach, both in-person and online workshops being delivered, and they have secured national funding to build on this going forward, to have their own installation in place, and to look at how that training can be more widely embedded. In Italy, we had face-to-face training, and again, there's a national working group established now with looking at how to best take that forward and ensure that the HYResponder training is built upon nationally. And these are just some images demonstrating the diversity in how the training was taken. In terms of the longer term impact examples, I've mentioned a little bit about Austria, Italy and Norway, but in Belgium, for example, there are plans in place over the next 5 years that will be built upon, ultimately targeting up to 16,000 firefighters across the 4 different learning levels. Czech Republic, the training was delivered to the training leads from each region with a working group in place as to how to build upon that going forward. And in France, where the unique facility is in place, again, this is already being utilised beyond the response community as well and by industry. So in each region, while we had a plan in place to train trainers and use them to develop local training, we've looked at how we can make sure it doesn't just stop when the project stopped and how we then build on that going forward. So all of the material is available on the HYResponder e-platform, and we also have a training framework in place delivered together with CTIF. So they were partners, the International Association of Fire and Rescue Services developed a framework to help with recognition of the firefighter level training. And this is, it's a framework to enable different regions to take the training and utilise it together with their own localised arrangements. It's aligned to EQF level 2, and that material is also available with the structure for the module on the CTIF website. In terms of the challenges and lessons learned, there was the pandemic. It completely caused us to revisit how we would look at any of our face-to-face training. We thought there would be a one-size-fits-all. That was not the case in order for us to ensure sustainability. We thought we would have an online forum for discussion, and the response from the responders was that where they have a query, they would rather that was in a more a not documented format, a different approach. But there's a strong will across all countries to continue these activities. So we feel that there is a sustainable plan in place there. And I think I'm just conscious if I'm going over time here. In terms of the wider impacts, we do have a unique training platform now. There's online training sequences available, stratified materials in the public domain, and we have trained the trainers from across 10 regions. We do have plans in place, as I mentioned, for each region beyond the project, and although the project has formally stopped, the activities are ongoing. We know we need to talk about it more, to disseminate it more, and there's plans in place for that as well. So I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and apologies if I did run over there.
No, thank you. On the contrary, Sile, you kept very well control of the time. Thanks a lot, and yes, and congratulations. I think it's impressive what you have achieved within the HYResponse and the plans that you have ahead. And also, thanks a lot for all your coordination and efforts. I know it hasn't been tough to get where you are now, and I think it will pay off and it is worth it. So thanks a lot, Sile, for being today with us and all your efforts as the coordinator. Let's continue. We are a little bit behind the schedule, but still we have sufficient time to go through the questions that we are receiving in the Slido. Please go ahead if you are listening or following the session. Feel free to pose your question in the Slido, and we will try to address the most relevant or the ones that are receiving more votes, let's say, at the end of the session. Next speaker and presentation, it's the TeacHY project, another project that we have supported within the JU program. And today it will be presented by the coordinator, Robert Steinberger-Wilckens. who works as a professor at the University of Birmingham. So, Robert, good to see you again. Thank you for being with us. And off you go. Go ahead.
Thanks, Alberto, and thanks for inviting us here. I just have to find the presentation.
Yeah, that's important.
Yes, but it's weird. It doesn't find that, so I have to. Where's it gone? Okay, the usual stuff. Let's see whether we can make this work. So that's full screen, is it?
That looks perfect.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah, I can only see what I'm showing. Okay, so thanks for inviting us here. The TeacHY project is one that finished end of last year. As Sheila presented, enough issues with COVID, but we managed to navigate that. So essentially, well, I'll present what we are about. So as I said, ended in November last year, started in November 2017. So overall took 5 years, I think 2 years longer than intended because of COVID. Total budget was about 1.5 million, out of which there was quite a substantial investment of the university and from the KIC, or one of the KICs, Energy, and the contribution of the EU, or joint undertaking, and that was still the fuel cell and hydrogen undertaking, was 1.25 million, roughly. Project is over, so 100% implemented, although we didn't manage all details of the tasks we wanted to do. Consortium is 12 universities across Europe, and that is not just EU, it's also now Europe, because as you might realize, the UK is now out, and we also have, or had, Ukrainian participants on board. From the start, as I had a long-standing collaboration with the Polytechnic of Kiev already. So essentially we represented the major educational, or most major educational institutions or systems, university systems across Europe. And also built on a lot of previous knowledge. So in Birmingham, we had the Center for Doctoral Training. So that's a specific way the UK government hands out stipends to doctoral training, so PhDs. We had run the trainee project in 2010 to 2012 when I was still in Research Center Jülich, where we essentially created a curriculum for training in hydrogen and a concept of a summer school, which still exists today. And then went on to have the project KnowHY, which was focused at professionals, so essentially what you today call upskilling, so training technicians in a first sort of online course at the time, or even hybrid, because the practical training was done in a laboratory. Currently we have the project Kickstart, which is a EIT KIC project, adding modules essentially to the project I'll be introducing here. And alongside we have the Joint European Summer School, which is currently privately funded, or has been over the last 11 years even, as an activity between DTU in Denmark, Research Center Jülich, or the RWTH University in Aachen, and University of Birmingham. So how does all this come together? So the project was started with the goal to bring more hydrogen and fuel cells, I have to say, teaching capacity to European universities. We had identified previously in the set plan education that we need around 200,000 trained workers, engineers, and scientists, so research and development engineers, by the year 2030, using some production numbers we'd extrapolated from back in 2012. And if you accept that part of these would be retrained on the job, so what we now call reskilling or upskilling, there still remains about 40% minimum you have to actually newly train. So graduates from university, people running through VET, vocational education and training, and other ways that professions or professional certificates are created across Europe. And our part of the approach was focused on universities and essentially expanding the capacity of universities who would be involved in hydrogen training in some way or the other by offering part of that training online. So we took this blended approach where part of education and learning is e-learning on a learning management system, and part would be in the classroom. And the idealistic, I have to say today, idea was that, okay, a university can supply 30% of the teaching capacity locally, and we'd offer the other 60% online as prefabricated modules, and then you'd remain with the exams and the final research project to be taken on site. Didn't quite work out that way. I'll introduce that in a moment. Still, we are well ahead of current developments. We have a fully set up master's program today that is essentially fully online and has been designed to be fully online from the start. So fully online in the sense that not everything that is offered has to be actually done online. Parts of that you could just take out of the online curriculum and teach in person. And even that we do slightly different today, which is one of the learnings of this project. So in principle, what we have is a set of modules which you can pick and choose. You can put together in different ways to create your own degree program. So in this case, training for a master's degree in hydrogen more in fuel cells, or in hydrogen and fuel cells, or fuel cells and hydrogen, as we do that. You can go for a 12, 18 or 24-month program. All of these exist. In the UK, it's 12 months, which is one of the advantages. But then again, it's a bit short. Typically today, a master's program is 18 months, and some countries are actually going for 24 just to add more scope. And then it becomes more of what we used to have before we had the bachelor's and master's, as something like a diploma course, which we had in many European countries. You can identify modules as core and others as optional. So students even have their own choice of choosing their specialization or forming their specialization. And you can add practical lab work as essentially one of the big advantages of such a training program. This is the outlay as we have set it up in Birmingham. So it has basic core elements, which is like electrochemistry, fuel cell technology, and hydrogen-based fuels. So not only looking at hydrogen, but also what we call today e-fuels. Then we have core elements like modeling and control, characterization, the lab session, which actually takes 2 weeks now, and the hydrogen safety module we're running together with Ulster. And then we have the optional modules. So a big range of things, broad range from low temperature fuel cells, high temperature fuel cells, to systems, to more general things like energy storage, renewable energy systems, and then down to things like hydrogen markets, policies, regulation codes and standards, and currently adding a few modules which come from the KIC project, so Kickstart H2, on hydrogen infrastructure and innovation management and business development. And then when you've gone through all this, you've collected the 120 UK credits or 60 ECTS points equivalent. You then enter the research project, which in Birmingham takes 12 weeks to get the final 30 ECTS points or 60 credits. So that's how it's structured. And currently we're running the 3rd cohort. So we currently have 15 students running through this program. Was a bit tough to start because the year we wanted to start this, and that was still within the original terms of the project, of course, was 2020. So we weren't allowed by the university to start a new program, and only started in 2021. And then uptake was slow because, of course, we were still half in and half out of COVID. So status today, as said, 3rd cohort, we have the 16 modules, with a couple more in preparation. We did find that we were a bit weak on the hydrogen side. There's lots of more interest currently in hydrogen than fuel cells, so we're adding that. And the other thing we did is we transferred the complete program to the University of Chemical Technology in Prague. Again, I'll talk about that in a moment, a longer process than anticipated, and that program will start from September of 2024. All the modules we have are also registered for continuous professional development courses at the university. So people can register through the university and attend these courses and then get the microcredits that we can attribute as a university, the UK credits or CTS points. And in parallel to this, a new program has been started by our partner, Politecnico of Torino, which is a more hydrogen-themed master's program across several universities. So in this case, several universities sharing one program. Not quite sure how that works with shared master's degrees. That's always a problem. But essentially, across 4 or 5 universities, another master's program in this area is being offered. So, number of lessons learned. One is that it's very difficult to sell to a university something that is prefabricated. So a lot of questions you have to answer about ownership of teaching materials. So the first question is, who owns it? It doesn't mean owns it in a physical sense. It means who has the control of the whole program. That starts with who actually can control the teaching material, change it, who can set the exam papers, who can mark the exam papers, and who can take or conduct the final research project. So it's much more than just having the slides available. Universities have their own learning management system, so the software, it's difficult to move between them because the software providers don't really like that. And universities are not very prepared to pay license fees for anything. There's other things like language is not so much of a problem because master's courses and programs across Europe, people would be used and prepared to do that in English. For the Ukraine, that doesn't work. And few other countries where English proficiency is not so developed. And then there's also the other aspect that you want to teach something that can later be also transferred into technology. So even if you've taken a university degree, at some point you might have to talk to somebody on the shop floor, and those might not have the vocabulary so in English. So you would have to have the vocabulary in whichever language you're then working in. So there is some area to develop here further. Lots of issues about different ways regulations apply to accreditation of programs and degrees, exams, amount of work to be done, and so on. Amount of work is relatively, so ECDS point system is relatively well developed, but many other things universities are quite autonomous in. And then there's the point, the balance between online and in person. So if you talk to undergraduates, they don't like online very much. They want to be in the classroom and then start playing on their iPhones, but and pretend they want to ask questions, which they never do. So we feel as teachers that online videos are quite sufficient. But then on the other hand, we run in-person tutorials. So students come to the classroom to ask questions, discuss things, and run exercises. So mostly you're talking to them and asking them questions, but you can run exercise and you can actually directly communicate. And that is extremely important. And it's also important for the CPD courses in a different way, because you can't run a CPD course the same you would a university course. It's a different beast altogether. So future plans, I have also written, and we have, I'm grateful for that. One, the project is the Hydrogen Academy, or European Hydrogen Academy, which will be looking at engaging more universities in this program, but also schools. And in this context, we build, or involving, not necessarily building, but involving 5 laboratories where practical teaching can be done, which should be then accessible to other institutions, universities, web. We'll be creating a series of textbooks, which is the free offering in education, and will be facilitating within these networks that universities and schools can supply training and education, and in order to do that, to train the trainer and teach the teacher courses. So the impact we have achieved is 12 universities across Europe are using the material, not all for full programs. So as I said, it's difficult, but a lot are using the material in specialized programs. So mechanically, degree in chemical engineering, and then specialization in hydrogen. We have a growing network of institutions working very closely together and using similar material or related material. And we definitely at this point have a better understanding of the requirements and the limitations which we hope to then bring into the Hydrogen Academy. So we've been slightly over time, I think. Thanks, Alberto. And I think I'll stop sharing here.
Very good, Robert. Thanks a lot. And nice overview. We are getting several questions for all the speakers. So I will refrain of making questions now, and let's close the round, let's say, with the next and last presentation. And in that sense, I would like to introduce the next speaker. It's Monika Holik, Head of Unit at the Marie Curie Actions and Support to Experts at the European Research Executive Agency. Monika, thanks for being here. I know it was a short notice, but I think it is very nice that you're here and all the audience can hear the new initiative that you have within the program and how this sector can benefit from. So thanks a lot again for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Monika Holik, Head of Unit at REA, the Research Executive Agency. And today I would like to present to you the staff exchanges actions, which is part of the Horizon Europe program and the part of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. In the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, we have 5 different actions: the doctoral networks, the postdoctoral fellowships, co-fund, citizens, and the staff exchanges. The staff exchanges is funding research and innovation projects implemented via secondment. The project budget is generated by the number and the length of the secondments, as we call it, as a personal months. What are the main objectives of our action? Our action has a bottom-up approach, so we are financing all kinds of scientific disciplines. We have, during the evaluation, 8 scientific panels, and during the project management as well. What we would like to do is to strengthen the knowledge transfer between participating organizations. The idea is to welcome and reward creativity and entrepreneurship and help turn ideas into products, services, and processes. The staff exchanges promotes intersectoral, interdisciplinary, and international mobility. And we call all these mobilities as secondments, so you will hear me saying secondments all the time. We involve organizations from the academic and non-academic sectors, and we have a very strong focus on industry and SMEs as well. What are the eligible participants for us? The applications must be submitted by a consortium of minimum 3 legal entities. 2 of them should be from EU member state or Horizon Europe associated country. If all the organizations are from the same sector, then there must be at least 1 organization which is a non-associated third country. This is the minimum requirement. Above this minimum, all the organizations from any country of the world are eligible. What are the eligible secondments? What we are financing? We are financing secondments between EU member states and Horizon Europe associated countries. This is the first group of organizations that the exchanges we are financing. These are beneficiaries for us, so they are signing the contract with us. There is only one condition for the financing of such a secondment, that these secondments should be interdisciplinary. They should be in between different sectors. So it's the secondments should be between a university and an industrial company or an SME or a profit research organization. If they are not between different sectors, then it is possible to finance also secondments between academia, between universities, but then in that case, the secondment should be interdisciplinary, so between different disciplines, and it shouldn't be more than 1/3 of the whole secondments of the project. We also finance secondments between European and associated countries and so-called low and medium income third countries. In the Horizon Europe program, there is a list of such countries, and we are financing all the secondments to these countries and from these countries. We also finance secondments from Europe to high-income third countries as well, but not from the other way around. What is the staff who is eligible for secondments? Any type of staff who is involved in research and innovation activities, like researchers of any stage. So it could be a first stage researcher, it could be a postdoctoral researcher, or administrative staff or managerial staff or technical staff can be seconded, but they have to be involved actually in the research and innovation project, in the activities. So we are not financing an accountant, for example, or a secretary. They have to be actively engaged in research and innovation activities at least 1 month prior the secondments at the sending institution. Each staff member should be seconded for a period of between 1 month and 12 months, and this period can be split in several stages as well. The staff needs to be devoted during the secondment full-time to the staff exchanges project, and after the secondment, the staff should return to their sending institution. It is a program which is quite easy to manage because we use unit cost, and every month for every person means a unit cost of 4,600 euro. This unit cost is divided in 2 parts. One part is the which has to go to the staff member directly. It is 2,300 euro, which should per month, which should cover the accommodation and the subsistence cost and the travel cost of the seconded staff member. The other part of the unit cost, which is 2,300 euro, is divided indicatively in 2 different parts. 1,300 euro is for research, training, and networking activities, and then 1,000 euro for the management and indirect costs. So this is our budget. I would like to show you in this slide a project that we have. It is the HYRID for Mobility project. The goal of this project is addressing critical issues towards the commercial implementation of hydrogen-powered utility vehicles using metal hydride, hydrogen storage, and PM fuel cells, together with the system for their refueling and industrial customers' facilities. The project has relevance in the context of developing a society based on energy supply from renewables. In these projects, we have a Norwegian coordinator and 9 partners. 5 of them are based in the EU or associated countries, and 4 entities are based in third countries. The budget of this project is over 350,000 euro. Here you can see the partners of the project. They are as from academia, so they are universities, and they are also from the industry, which is very interesting that there are 2 industrial partners from South Africa in this project, and 1 partner from, we have an academic partner from Indonesia as well. The 4 EU partners are from Germany, Croatia, Norway, and Ukraine. And as I mentioned, the third country partners are 2 industrial partners from South Africa, 1 partner from South Africa, the University of the Western Cape, and 1 university from Indonesia. And this is just an example of the secondments that we have in this project. There are more secondments, but we could not show all of them. So, for example, we had one researcher from Germany who completed a 1-month secondment to South Africa to conduct successful VDI 60 testing of the 2nd generation fuel cell power pack, jointly developed and constructed in the project by partners from different countries. Then we have another secondment from another researcher from Indonesia who visited the Institute for Energy Technology Norway and worked on development and characterization of advanced MH materials for hydrogen storage and compression. We also had another secondment of 3 researchers from University of Western Cape that who spent 1 month at the University of Split, and they worked with team members about the ways of optimization of BOP fuel cell power modules for heavy-duty utility vehicles. So in total, during the project execution, more than 15 open access scientific publications were issued. To summarize the staff exchanges, the key features, we have a bottom-up approach, so we are funding mobilities in all scientific disciplines. The duration of our projects is maximum 4 years and 360 personnel months per project. The secondments can be between 1 and 12 months, and they can be split in different past secondments. And there should be the interdisciplinary secondments cannot be more than 1/3 of the total secondments. The unit cost is 4,600 euro. 2,300 goes to the staff and 2,300 to the organization. And the average budget is around 80 million euro that we have per year. How you can benefit from staff exchanges? You may have this question. There are many advantages that the entities that are participating have, and the staff members also who participate in these staff exchanges. What we notice that we have reports of are the enhanced research and transferable skills and competencies leading to better employability and career prospects within and outside the academia. The staff members see their knowledge and innovative ideas converted into products, processes, and services. They have an expanded international exposure, leading to extended networks and opportunities. And finally, they also have improved networking and communication capacities with scientific peers and general public. We wanted to show you this action because we think that it could be a complementary tool to boost your projects that you have, and we have seen already several examples of very interesting projects that could even benefit from our action. You could use our action, for example, to extend the regional coverage of your consortium. So if you want to involve more partners, if you want to test your processes or your products in different countries and in different laboratories or in different industrial sites, you could use this kind of this funding. The staff who participate in this kind of secondments, they all reported very enhanced skills. And you could have the access to more disciplines as well, because we are very supportive also to involve different disciplines in the projects. Participating in our call would also mean for you that you could avoid to have cumbersome amendment procedures or open a new call if you need more financing for such an activities. So you would just use our funding to extend your project. We have now an open call. Normally we have one call per year. We opened the call on the 5th of October, and we have the deadline for this for the applications on the 28th of February. So there is still time to prepare. This year budget is 78.5 million euro. We normally finance around 80 projects from this money. So an average project size is 1 million euro, but we have projects from 300,000 until 1.5 million euro. So it depends on the consortium and mostly on the number of the participating entities. We have an info session on the 8th of December, very soon, where we are inviting you, and you are very much welcome to participate in this info session. You have here in the presentation, you have here the link to the info session, and we will have a Slido part also where you can ask questions from us, and you are very much welcome to participate in our session, where we will be very happy to reply to any questions that you may have. And obviously, if you have questions right now, I am here to reply also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monika. And thank you for being with us and sharing this information, this very interesting information with the audience. And we will make sure, at least within the JU, that the word is spread. And I'm pretty sure that many of the partners within our projects, they could profit from this new initiative and this funding. So maybe before we go through the Slido, I can open the discussion, and then now that I have you on the screen, because I cannot refrain myself. Do you plan to have a, let's say, sectorial call for proposals? Let's say a specific call for proposal for, let's say, for example, net zero technologies, or this is open in general for all the R&D projects?
It's open for all
It's open,
our.
no?
Yes, it's open. So we are a bottom-up program, so we don't have topics or specific scientific objectives. So you would be in competition with other scientific disciplines as well. But we have a very nice success rate. This year we had 40% of success rate. Well, it's usually a bit lower, around 30-35%, but it is quite reasonable, I think.
No, very nice. And as I said, I'm pretty sure that many of our partners or the projects involved, the partners involved in the projects might be interested. So thanks a lot again and for sharing it, and good luck with the first call for proposal. We will spread the word internally
Sorry,
within the
it's
Hadrian
not
sector.
our
Yes,
first.
please go ahead. It's not
Sorry,
the first, not with the second. Yes, with the call
no.
for proposals.
We had, in fact, we had in the previous, in Horizon 2020, we had a predecessor action which called the RISE, and Research and Innovation Staff Exchanges, which was a very similar program. So we have a quite a high number of projects that are actually running already under our financing.
Perfect. I was really pleased to see that you already have experience with projects involving hydrogen technologies, which is also very good as an example for others to follow. Thanks a lot, Monika. Let's go directly to the questions in the Slido, because we have quite a few, to be honest. I think we are covering most of the speakers, so I will go just in chronological order, let's say, and I believe that the first question, Katarina, it is for you, and I will try to read this. To which extent are training providers or authorities or institutes in charge of vocational training involved in the project? And if you are considering possible synergies with European social funds to fund the rollout or the implementation of these trainings. Can you elaborate a little bit on this? Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto. I hope I have understood the question correctly. So the question is to what extent are the VATs involved in the project?
Authorities, institutional, educational institutes or educational, let's say, institutions in charge, involved in the project? And what is your plan, let's say, for the rollout, the massive rollout of the teaching?
Yeah, exactly. As I mentioned at the very beginning of my presentation while talking about the project, it is in its essence a blueprint. So the main objective is to have a blueprint that then others will be able to replicate.
Yes.
If you remember looking at the map of the different stakeholders that are involved, we do have already VAT providers, of course, that will help us to to test the training. We also have some regional authorities on board the project, for example, Western Macedonia, Stara Zagora, or Rhône-Alpes, to once again, as a stakeholder that will help us bring in some of the regional aspects into these trainings. Now, once we have the VAT curriculum in place, once we do the testing of the trainings, once we have the training materials available on our website, then our plan is to encourage others to take them on board, adjust them to their regional or local circumstances, and to test them out. Of course, we will provide support as much as we can to those who are willing to take on the contents and the trainings, but the project itself stops there. So we won't be able to provide any funding in order for these projects to be rolled out. But maybe just to add also to the audience is within Hydrogen Europe, we have a skills working group. Robert, one of our speakers today, is one of the chairs because we are partnering up with Hydrogen Europe Research. And within this group, we are trying to map all the available funding, especially you mentioned from the European Social Fund. And we're trying to then encourage our members to search directly the funding in their member states. I mentioned already that some of our members are regions. So we're doing a similar exercise with the regions, trying to direct them where they can go and find funding to support the rollout of these projects. In short, Green Skills for Hydrogen provides the blueprint, provides examples of trainings, will provide the training materials available in English and in some other official languages, but it won't be able to cover the whole 27 countries, unfortunately. But nevertheless, do get in touch because, as we've discussed, and it was also raised by other speakers, train the trainers aspect is quite an important one, and it's something that will be addressed within the project itself. So we really need to train our trainers so they can also be empowered to replicate and to implement these trainings in their respective communities. I hope I managed to answer the question.
Absolutely, and indeed you have answered even the second question, which was related with the training activities, if they are within the scope of the project. So very good, Katarina, thanks a lot. The next question is for Sile, and with respect to the HYResponder project. And the question is, what was the response from the responders at the beginning of the project when you explained that the training of hydrogen safety was important? What was the feeling from the first and second responders?
Well, I guess we didn't really have to demonstrate the importance of it from the outset, in the sense that quite a number of the partners in the project are responders who saw the need there from the outset, where the representative partner in a region delivering training isn't a partner, or sorry, it wasn't a fire school. They had already identified before joining the project as a partner who the fire school or national training organisation were that they would work alongside. So, for example, our Italian partner is the University in Rome, and yet from the very outset, the National Fire Corps in Italy were on board and working with them. So in terms of there being a need, we didn't feel, I'm not sure if that's what the question meant, but there wasn't a need to sell it by any means. The opposite has been the case, in the sense that the interest has just grown as it's developed. We've had interest from outside of Europe as well. I know in Australia they're looking at how they will roll out responder training and have looked towards HYResponder as a potential model because of this diversity in training levels. That's what we see across Europe as well. You know, in France, a lot of the firefighters are coming from a voluntary perspective, with perhaps different training backgrounds, whereas in other areas, there's a different approach.
No, very good. And I know that you have been in contact with other regions of the world, and you're somehow pioneering this exercise around the globe. I have another question, which is related with the next steps. You mentioned that you have already huge plans to continue, let's say, training the trainers and spreading the word. And the knowledge that you have generated in the project. And some of the partners or region, they have come up with additional funding. No? So in that sense, can you a little bit how this was done, and can you provide any recommendation to other projects to follow this example? How did you manage to put in place such a plan with additional funding so that the efforts of this funding, it's yes.
Well, I think it's
multiplied?
evolved and perhaps snowballed, if that's the right word, as the project has progressed. So, for example, our partners in Spain were able to secure regional funding, I believe, in order to have a small scale installation and to justify it in the sense that they can now provide training to other regions in the vicinity. That was in Zaragoza. In Norway, it was national funding that was secured by the university there, again demonstrating, I guess, that there was a clear need by involving the local fire schools and demonstrating this need for the hands-on training element, and the clear, I guess, wish for it or market for it, for want of a better word. So we do have what we have learned is that we can sort of share best practice now. I know NSOSP have been really great in terms of working with any partner who wants to develop their own installation outside of the official HYResponder project plans and supporting them in that regard. I don't know if that answers your question or...
It does, it does. Very good. Thanks a lot, Sile, once again. Robert, I have two questions, or at least one, if I'm not mistaken, for you. And this is related with the challenges concerning the preparation of the material and the implementation of the online trainings. Do you have any recommendations based on your experience for others when they face this preparation of the teaching materials for online teaching?
Well, in principle, it's not that different from what you do in the classroom. So in Birmingham, we had a history that we were recording all the lectures anyway. So what you did in the classroom was recorded and then later presented on the LMS for students to later revisit, which they do for revision for the exams. And essentially, you could just repurpose that. You could just use that instead of recordings. So there is not really a difference between what you present in an online version and what you present in a classroom. But there is an issue about attention span. So in a classroom, of course, you see the students then starting to work on their smartphones and sleeping and whatnot. But you can't present for 45, 60, even 90 minutes in online video. Although you think, of course, they can stop at any time, they can go forwards, backwards, they can go and grab a coffee. You have to sort of portion it in some way, which has some other dangers. I won't go into that. But the main point or the main insight we got was that you have to mix this with in-person elements, at least at a university. You can't do all the teaching online at a university. It makes the students quite unhappy. We had that during COVID, and they came back wanting everything in the classroom. That's worn off now, so they want to mix, and they're quite happy with watching some things online because that gives them more freedom in their time management. But you have to properly mix these things. And for the CPD courses, it's very similar in a different way because there you don't normally have anything in person because people are spread all over the place, but you have to have the actual synchronous time online tutorials. So you have to actually meet people in some way and interact with them. That's very important. You can't have everything online.
Yes, the tutoring and the mentoring, no, it's also relevant in this kind of distance or online learning. I have another question for you, Robert, if you don't mind, which is related with the update and the future plans, because of course you've been developed a lot of modules which can be reused in different teaching programs all across Europe, and you have done a great effort all together collectively within the consortium to develop this training program. What's your plan for the future? How do you plan to, let's say, updating or keep updated these teaching materials? You know that the sector is very dynamic. Everything is changing very quickly. We are in this situation. So what's your plan to keep the teaching materials updated and appealing for the students?
Right. There's 2 or 3 lessons learned here. The first one is never put a date on your slides, because the students will then the students will come back and say, this is old, it's 2 years, it's even 1 year old. On the other hand, a lot of material doesn't outdate at all. So I'm partly using stuff that is 20 years old, nobody would see any difference at all. So essentially you have to differ between things that are basics and will always stay the same, like basics, chemistry and physics, and even electrochemistry, and things that change more quickly. So the lecture on market introduction of fuel cells will of course be a different one every year, because it takes new on practically every year, or on policies or markets or whatever. So again, you have to do a mix there. So ideally you'll portion your lectures into parts that are static, that will stay the same and not change so much, and update the other things. What I have done more recently is adding updates. So one thing that online teaching gives you, or learning management systems, it's very easy to add material, which will overwhelm the students at some point, but essentially you can do updates and small additional lectures all the time, and you just add them. And that way you don't have to change the main material. But essentially that's up to everyone to decide that. We have found it difficult to chase other people to update material. So if you have a course or program set up from material from very different sources, getting that updated is really difficult. And that is one of the challenges we'll be looking at in the Academy.
So you have already considered, let's say, the update when you were tailoring the teaching material, so that you minimize, let's say, the effort to update it. That's what I understand. Very good.
That is the insight we have now. Well, it's not all the material we actually have is built that way, but future material will be. Yeah.
Okay, very good, Robert. And I have time still for 2 additional questions for Monika concerning the initiative. And if I read well, it's related with the eligibility for applying to the call for proposals, and related with if national projects, meaning projects not funded by Horizon 2020 or Horizon Europe, let's say, can also apply for the call for proposals. What kind of, yes? Your national projects can profit from this initiative?
Yes, definitely. National projects, but they have to be multinational. They have to become multinational because we are funding also only secondments between different countries. But otherwise, yes. So you have to take it as a top-up allowance, because we are not paying for the salaries of the researchers. So that has to be funded by different sources. So it is very often that we have already a bigger project, and our staff exchanges project is as a kind of top-up of the bigger projects. So it is not eligibility criteria, so it can be financed by other as well. Yeah.
Very good. And just because it's related with the last question, how many calls do you publish per year? Is once, twice?
We have 1 call per year, so
One
for
call
every year, and it will be until the end of the Horizon Europe program at least.
Okay, so
Yeah.
until 2027, there will be opportunities, let's say, to
Yes,
apply for
Yeah.
the funding. Very good, Monika. With this,
You're welcome.
unfortunately, we don't have more time, and we need to conclude and close the session. So I would like to thank everybody, all the speakers, everybody at home for following the session. And I would like to invite you to the next session within the Hydrogen Research Days, in which we will address the closing and the key takeaways. So don't miss it, and keep tuned with us, and see you in a few minutes. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.